Hello, good evening.
Hi there, guys.
How's everybody doing?
The chat's on
Yeah, we need
fire.
like a dancing emoji for members. If you guys, the ones that are members, if you don't know this, if you tap on like where you typically do emojis, it'll say Kari Moody, and there's like specific ones just for members only. So there's some cute ones there that I made. Bet you didn't
Oh,
know that, did you?
I just learned something new. That is cool.
There you go. So
I
how's
love
everybody
it.
doing? Are you having a good week? Hopefully you are. Yes, Roseanne. Prayers for Florida, Georgia, North and South
Yeah.
Carolina. Definitely. I've been watching the coverage most all day today. And truthfully, I almost canceled the live because I kind of felt bad about even doing the live with everything that's going on out there. So definitely thinking of everybody that's in Florida right now. And yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. Hello, Biscotti. Biscotti. You need to tell me which way you want that pronounced. I know it can go both ways. Have you seen the chat? Mama Moo's in the chat. I saw Bianca, Margaret. I saw Roseanne. I saw, who else do I see in there? CB. CB's in there. He'll cause some trouble, I'm sure. Chaina's in there. Shannon's in there. Chopped liver is in there. I need chopped liver and I see red flags in the same chat at the same time, or it's just not the same. I'm telling you. And I've got some names in here I don't recognize. Bandits World. Where was the other one I saw? Trisha Burbank. And who else? I like to recognize people that come in here. Carrie Trejo. I hope I said that right. Trejo. Carrie, correct me. Not you, Carrie, that Carrie. And then Galen Eggleston. We've got all kinds of people in the chat tonight. This is awesome. Hello, Norm, in the free zone with Norm. Hello there. We like Norm. Did you bring your
Yep.
friend Derek with you? Hello, Lacey. That is awesome. We've got a healthy chat tonight. We've got
Yes. Thank you.
100
Thank you.
people watching, and good Lord, there's a whole bunch in the chat. Holy
Awesome.
crow.
Awesome. Awesome. So tonight, I had told you guys last week we were going to kind of go over what to expect at the preliminary hearing. And then, of course, the new charges came out. And I did a video when they did come out. I was still waiting on Paul's document at that time. So I had to go and correct a few things. And I had to pin it in the comment of the video. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into those new charges, who got them, what we can expect, what the prosecution is going to need to be able to prove, those kind of things. Um, I left out a lot of info kind of intentionally, so it's not super, super detailed, but hopefully I'll give a good overview. Please keep in mind, Tara and I are not attorneys. This just based on, our own research, general knowledge, knowledge from covering previous trials. Please do your own research when in doubt, because like I said, we are not attorneys. If there is an attorney that watches us on the replay, and would like to come up and help us sometime, kind of explain some of the legal things, we would love to have you. So please reach out to Tara or myself, and our emails are in the description. So I
Perfect.
think that is where I'm at. Do you have anything to add to that, Tara?
No, just if I say no and I go just. Um, yeah, putting out the best information we can. It being not being attorneys, we rely on our research as best as possible. But there's nothing like performing actual law in the courtroom, which is why if you're an attorney out there, we would love to hear from you. Even if you want to correct us on something, we are cool to be corrected. I am going to note that we were corrected out there in YouTube world, but it was a not nice correction. We don't mind being corrected. We do make mistakes. We try to catch them in the moment. And so if you see something that needs some assistance, support, help, or just flat out correction, let us know. It doesn't hurt our feelings. We're cool with that. We do the best we can.
Absolutely. Yep. We know we make mistakes. It's not a problem. There's
Mhm.
going to be errors. There's always ever errors in a slide, it happens. So,
Mhm.
but definitely we don't mind to be corrected. Just be respectful and kind when you do it, I think.
Yeah. You know,
So,
be kind to others. That's how it should be, right? Be kind to others.
otherwise, the response from me isn't always what you're going to expect.
You might-
Peggy, oh, Peggy, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Blonde
I
Gnome,
love
thank
that
you.
name. That name is cool.
Thank you to both of you. I appreciate that.
Very much. That's
Yes.
awesome, you guys. All humans make mistakes. That's right, Roseanne. All
Yes,
humans do make mistakes. We're supposed to. The best thing about it is that we own it.
definitely. And hello, Dicey. And Margaret said, replaying previous videos from beginning of case has been so helpful. It's helpful to us as well. You really wouldn't realize how often we have to refer back to old documents because we forget too. And
Yes.
there is a lot of information in this case, plus all the stuff in our heads and our messages and our inboxes. There's a lot to keep track of. So absolutely, we do make mistakes. So
Well, yeah, just like
um,
today, we're trying to figure out where a message came from. Did you get that? Did I get which crap? Which one of us got it? Because we just share as much as possible and we just get wrapped up in
yeah, I was like, Tara, did you talk to this person? She's like, I don't know. I'll have to go look. I'm like, I don't think I have. I was so confused. So anyway, that's where we're at. But please don't hesitate to like point out,
yes,
something. Appreciate
we're
it.
cool with that. It's what makes us a nice little happy community in here.
Yes. And Casey, what state are you ladies from? I am from Oklahoma, Casey.
And I'm in
I,
Kansas.
I'm in Oklahoma. Tara's in Kansas. Oh no. CB said hit the thumbs up or I'm going to make you my co-conspirators.
I actually believe that about you, CB. I've gotten to know CB the last week or so, and there's a lot of information there, but it's really good information.
Yes.
It's
He's a
funny.
little ornery one.
He is ornery.
All right.
Okay, so
So
on the screen, you got it
yes, the
going.
new charges. If you didn't see my video last week, or even if you did see it, there's going to be a few minor corrections, obviously, like I just said. Um, these on your screen are the new charges, current charges for Tifany as of October 3rd. Of course, she still has the count 1 and 2 of murder in the first degree deliberate intent,
Mhm.
count 3 of conspiracy. Now, what was removed are 2 kidnapping charges. So Tifany no longer has kidnapping charges. In place of those, they've added counts 4 through 9 for Tifany. Um, Counts 4 and 5 are unlawful removal of a dead body. 6 and 7, unlawful desecration of a human corpse. And counts 8 and 9, child neglect. And Traveling Teresa, thank you so much for being here. And then Tad and Cole, they too, the two kidnapping charges are now gone off of theirs, but they have, of course, counts 1 and 2, murder and first degree deliberate intent, count 3 of conspiracy, just like before. But now they too have counts 4 and 5 of unlawful removal of a dead body, and 6 and 7 of unlawful desecration of a human corpse. Paul and Cora do not have those added charges. They both have the ones that you see on your screen: 2 counts of murder in the first degree deliberate intent, 2 counts of kidnapping, which I find interesting, and then the 5th count of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah, the kidnapping one kind of has me,
It's perplexed. Yep.
yeah, a little
I
perplexed, I think.
I have some
I
questions.
kind of tried to do my research to see why. That's why, if an attorney hears this, please contact us. We'd like to get that side
Yes.
of it.
Well, if you know how to
Um,
text us or message us on the side, if you don't want to make yourself known in the chat, you can
yeah,
message either one of us through Facebook or the burner number. I'll put my burner number up there so it's easy to um, but yeah, connect with us because we'd like to have additional value added, I guess.
yes, definitely. And the conspiracy, because it was, I'm guessing that's just because it was a conspiracy altogether, as in for both the ladies. I'm not real sure. That's a good question. Peggy asked, any idea why only 1 count conspiracy for each of them?
I'm not sure what the conspiracy layout is in terms of legal ease. So it might be just one plan versus two plans. I think if the maybe if the activities towards each of if the activities towards Veronica and Jilian were a little bit different, but both with the same intent, maybe that would be that would make for two conspiracy charges. But since it's the same plan and both of them were involved in the same plan, maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
It's kind of what I think. And I do have a slide on that.
Sweet.
All right. So the first degree murder, deliberate intent, 2 counts. So what that means is the defendants are charged with aiding and abetting in the deliberate and intentional murder of Veronica Butler, count 1, and Jilian Kelley, count 2, on March 30th, 2024. The victims were allegedly lured to a location where they were fatally wounded. Punishment in Oklahoma for first degree murder is punishable by life imprisonment or death, depending on the circumstances. So, how the state arrived at this charge. Now, this is me. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. This is coming from me. How I think that this is working out. Evidence of premeditation and planning. The prosecution likely has evidence that the defendants deliberately planned to lure the victims to the location, meaning Highway 95 and Road L, and inflict fatal wounds upon them. This could involve communication, such as the burner phones, the burner phone records, or any surveillance that showed preparation and planning for the murders. Aid and abet law, the state will argue that the defendants aided and abetted in the murders. This means that even if they did not inflict the fatal wounds themselves, so say Cora and Cole, we kind of read in another document that they were the lookout. So for instance, them, that even if they didn't inflict the fatal wounds themselves, their actions in facilitating the murder, such as luring the victims, makes them equally responsible. And then evidence needed at preliminary, I believe, is going to be the forensic evidence, obviously, showing how the wounds were inflicted and connecting the defendants to the crime scene. So the DNA, the weapons used, etc. Testimonies of witnesses or surveillance footage demonstrating the defendant's role in luring the victims or aiding those who carried out the murders. And then, of course, the phone records or communications between the co-conspirators leading up to the murders.
Okay, so there's a couple. Hey, Dicey became a new member. Yeah, you're going to do what I was going to do. There's some comments in there that we should probably address on this slide.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I want to go back up first and start with Patrick's. It says because they're asking about the conspiracy, and Patrick says, I think it's because they conspired to kill Veronica. They didn't plan for Jilian. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Patrick, I think the plan was to kill whoever was with Veronica. I think that was the plan because Cheryl Bruni had always been the preferred court-approved supervisor, which was on Tifany's list of approved supervisors. That was one of her chosen people. Jilian was one of Veronica's chosen people. And so I think that when Cheryl Bruni was told to take some time off, let's see how Veronica's supervisors act with the kids and what happens. I think that was part of the, I don't want to hurt Cheryl, I'll hurt whoever's with Veronica. So I think there is something to that.
Yeah, because she knew for sure that somebody was going to be with her, and she probably knew it was more than likely going to be Jilian.
Yes.
Because Tifany knew who the ladies were.
Exactly. Run for Justice says, I believe they removed the kidnapping charges because they've determined they died at the scene. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know because there's still 2 with kidnapping charges, but we weren't expecting things to change in terms of charges. So there may be more changes to come. At this stage in the game, we thought we were set on those 5. And so maybe there's more going on behind the scenes than what we all realize. It'll be interesting to see what keeps happening here. CB Slinger says more than one person or persons makes it a conspiracy. So it's a one plan. It doesn't matter how many people are involved. It's the planning itself. So I'm watching my phone to see if we get anybody else in there that as a lawyer and can help us, because that might be a good point.
Yeah,
there.
I think he's saying, there's more than one person involved. So in this case, there's 5 involved, making it a conspiracy.
Yeah. but why not remove those for Paul and Cora? Paul's paperwork said he unalived Veronica and participated in the transport and burial. That's what I'm curious about too. There's something going on. I don't know that we've heard the end of all the charges now that they've done this to the 3. So I think we've got some. I don't know. I'm not convinced that this is done. I was convinced for a while. I was convinced the 5 charges, but I think we've. And Kari, look.
Yes, Narcissist Hunter, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. We appreciate you.
Yes,
And
Dicey.
Dicey, thank you for becoming a new member.
That's so
We
awesome.
appreciate you very much.
And Shayna says, I would like to know what Cora meant when she said it didn't go as planned. Was it the farmer in the adjacent field, etc.? My theory on that, Shayna, is that I don't believe the activity, the actions, the attacks were supposed to happen there. I think the idea was to leave that car abandoned to make people wonder. No DNA be left behind. It'd be a where did they go? They were kidnapped. It's no man's land. Take advantage of some of the folklore in that area and take care of them in a different spot. And then, nobody be the wiser. So I think that's what they meant when it didn't go as planned. I think Veronica and Jilian fought back unexpectedly. Maybe the stun guns didn't work. Maybe they moved quicker than expected. Maybe they attacked first. Who knows? But I don't think the plan was to attack them there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, Norm. There's more going on behind the scenes, and yes, sir. And they keep showing us that. Showing us that. So you've got something new on the screen here. It's the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, the 2 counts of those. I didn't know if you want to go through. You want me to? I'm just in here like, well, just segue.
I don't care. I was reading. I gave Bianca a wrench, and I didn't even ask her. So I was hoping she'd be okay with it.
I'll let you 2 figure that out real quick. Bianca, are you good, or do you want to?
Seems all right.
You want to turn it in?
Yeah, you can always throw it back.
No.
Yeah. Do you want to do this slide, Tara?
Yeah, I certainly can. So what we have here is the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. There's 2 counts. So what that means is that the defendants are charged with conspiring to commit first-degree murder by planning and arranging the murders of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley between February 13 and March 30, 2024. So they allegedly purchased burner phones, stun guns, ratchet straps, and traveled to the area to carry out the plan. The punishment for this kind of charge is up to 10 years in prison and a fine of $5,000 or both. So how the state arrived to this charge is that there's proven coordination. This means the purchase of specific items such as the burner phones, stun guns, ratchet straps, and the travel to the location suggest premeditation and coordination. This points to deliberate efforts to plan the murders in advance. Evidence of a conspiracy is when multiple defendants agree to participate in planning. So this supports the charge of conspiracy. And even if all of them didn't physically commit the murder, being a part of the plan is enough for this charge. So I've already sorry, we've got such awesome chatters. So the evidence needed at the preliminary hearing is the purchases and receipts for the burner phones, stun guns, and ratchet straps, possibly including surveillance footage from those stores they were purchased from. The text messages, emails, or calls between the defendants discussing the plan to murder Butler and Kelley, and then testimony from witnesses who observed the defendants burying the items or traveling to the location.
Buying the items. Yeah.
Buying. So
it's hard for us to see.
So my screen over here is huge and the screen over here is little, and I'm trying to be trying to become one with the screen, but I like being corrected. It works. We're good. So I don't know if there was anything in the chat that came up with that other than smashing the like button, which that's awesome.
So yeah, that kind of explains how they came to that conspiracy charge. And basically it was just that there's multiple defendants that agreed to and participated in the planning of it.
Yeah. And so we've seen some of that in those arrest warrants. So I think and like we've said multiple times, and we'll keep saying it, it's a good reminder. Those pages have a lot of in the lines reading that needs to be done, read between the lines type of thing. There is always more. Those are just stories that are being told. It's not the entire picture painted for us. We have to keep that in mind. There's a lot going on.
Hi, little Irish.
Hi. She says just Irish. That's what hi, Irish.
Yep. Thank you for being here. Yeah.
We're so happy to have her.
All
All
right.
righty.
So the kidnapping charges against Cora and Paul, this is like to the best that I can figure it out right now. What it means, that's pretty simple. Kidnapping in Oklahoma is defined as unlawfully confining or abducting someone against their will, typically for the purpose of committing another crime, like murder in this case. Cora and Paul are charged with kidnapping Veronica and Jilian Kelley, which means the state is accusing them of playing a direct role in either detaining, moving, or confining the victims before the murders. The punishment in Oklahoma is a serious felony. Can result in up to 20 years in prison. If it is connected to a murder or serious violence, such as this, then the penalties can be more severe, especially if the victims were harmed or killed during or after the abduction. And then how the state arrived at this charge. The kidnapping charges against Cora and Paul suggest that the state has evidence showing that they were involved in either the initial detainment or the transportation of the victims before the murders. And here are some possible reasons that the state may have brought these charges against them. The physical detainment, the prosecution likely believes that Cora and Paul were directly responsible for either abducting or holding the victims before their murders, whether that be through force, threats, restraint, that kind of thing. Just even words threatening them, if you leave, I'm going to do this. That could be cause for the kidnapping charge. They may have physically moved the victims from one location to another, such as transporting them to a place where they were eventually murdered. Now, we don't think that that's the case here. We do believe that there is the one crime scene, but it's possible. I mean, look how many turns and twists we've had so far. So who knows what might come out. The movement of the victims, the kidnapping could be linked to the act of moving the victims from one location to another, potentially from where they were last seen to the site of their murder. If Cora and Paul were directly involved in driving the victims or otherwise ensuring that they were confined, then that would justify the kidnapping charges. Active role in the abduction. If evidence shows that Paul and Cora were involved in luring, restraining, or preventing the victims from escaping, they could be charged with kidnapping. And that's what I think the kidnapping charge is in this case. I think that's where it'll go. This could include any actions that they took to facilitate the abduction, such as, again, using threats, weapons, or force to confine the victims.
It's a lot to unpack. So I'm kind of
Yes.
curious because if you look back, we had to go back and look at documents, the search and seizure documents and the arrest warrants, and try to put these charges together in our head. And of course, as more charges come out or as more information comes out, as changes occur, our theories are likely going to change. But I'm curious because Cole and Cora Twombly had search and seizure warrants for their trucks. It was, I think, a Dodge and a Chevy. So I would presume they drove separately. So it kind of makes you wonder if maybe Paul and Cora rerouted, because I always thought the women were forced off the road, do a roadblock, and then forced onto that 2-track road through another roadblock of L Road. And that's where the other 3 were waiting for them, which is why the kidnapping charges, maybe those changed for that reason. They didn't actually do the actual kidnapping, so to speak, but they were there, and that's where the attack occurred, where the car was found. So I'm kind of curious if maybe that's where that's going. God, why didn't they do that if Paul's been talking this whole time? If we want to stick to that theory, why wasn't that done
Right.
before? So it's
Curious, very curious.
mhm.
Blonde Gnome said, "Do you feel these 5 thought no one would miss Veronica showing up at the party? Or what are your thoughts on why they thought they would never get caught for unaliving?" Well, I think they thought originally that they were going to destroy enough of the evidence that obviously that Veronica and Jillian would, be missed. People would know they were missing, but that they could never find them. And I
Yes.
think that that is why they buried them so deep in the ground. They used that deep freezer. They used the hay. All of that stuff was to attempt to cover up where they would eventually be found at. I
Yes.
just think that they thought they were smarter than the OSBI and law enforcement, I think.
That worked out
And
well for them.
Travel and Teresa said, "Could them blocking the road be kidnapping against their will and had no escape?"
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, according to Oklahoma law, yes. I'm still watching my phone for any kind of messages.
Fancy ass. Fancy ass. As soon as the road is blocked and the lady's unable to go on their free will, is kidnapping. Absolutely.
Agreed.
If somebody traps you in your bathroom and doesn't let you out, it's kidnapping. Things like that. So same thing applies here.
Yes. Patrick Orion paperwork says Tad and Paul did the unaliving and transport and burial in Cole and Cora blocked road and were lookouts. So I'm seriously confused. Well, I said I have to go back and look at they say they blocking the road and being lookouts. We don't know what that means exactly. If they started off
Right.
as lookouts, again, we're only getting part. There's this big giant jigsaw puzzle taking place before us, and we keep getting these pieces, and they look like they go here and there. They don't really attach to the right things yet, and so as more comes out, it starts to make more sense, which is why the preliminary hearings are going to be kind of a mind-blowing event, I think. I think
And I think too that we're learning a little bit more because it's my opinion that Cora obviously is working with the state at this point. And so she is probably filling in some details that they may not have had. And they have the evidence to back up what she's saying. So that's a possibility too.
could
All we
be.
can really do is the kidnapping charges has thrown everybody for kind of a loop for sure.
Kimberly Wiley says total speculation, but if Paul was bleeding bad from the cut and therefore to keep from leaving his blood at the scene was not able to help with moving the bodies, maybe Cora was helping Paul. I've heard we're actually going to do we're going to get to that later on in the show. Kimberly, we actually have had some back and forth about that. We do know he was injured. That's in the one of the arrest warrants, I think is what it's at. So we do know there's an injury somewhere. It's the severity of the injury. So we'll get to that later. That's coming up. Spoilers. So I'm not going to do a spoiler alert because we want to make you stay and watch. We want your input in the chat. You're welcome.
And Patrick, you're right. The Paul's paperwork does say he did assist in transport and burial. That's what it does say. Will that change? I mean, will they make another filing and amend something? That's possible too. So, but you are correct. It did say that.
Absolutely. All righty.
All
So
right. Next
to the next one.
There we go.
Outstanding. So what evidence is needed at the preliminary hearing? So the state will need to show probable cause that Cora and Paul were involved in the unlawful confinement or movement of the victim. So this evidence might include testimony from witnesses. If CW, which is the minor witness, or another individual witness Paul or Cora involved in detaining or transporting the victims, their testimony will be crucial. Statements from anyone who saw Cora or Paul with the victims before their deaths could establish probable cause for kidnapping. Phone or GPS data, location data from the defendants' phones could show that they were present at the scene where the victims were detained or moved, helping to place them with the victims at critical times. Phone records could also reveal communication between Cora, Paul, and others involved in the crime, showing that they coordinated the kidnapping or transport. If forensic evidence such as fingerprints, DNA, or physical evidence like restraints ties Cora and Paul to the vehicle or the location where the victims were confined or transported, this would support the kidnapping charge. Blood patterns or drag marks could show the victims were moved or restrained before being killed. Physical items such as restraints, possibly even the stun guns. The state may have evidence such as restraints that were used to confine the victims. If items like handcuffs, ropes, stun guns are linked to Paul or Cora, it could support the kidnapping charges. If there's surveillance footage showing Paul and Cora with the victims, this could be used to prove that they were involved in moving or detaining them against their will. So lots of opportunity there to make these charges stick. Lots and lots of opportunity for evidence. So this is not to say this is the evidence at hand. This is to say
These are just possibilities of
some of them, yes. Just some of them. So
Yes.
keep that in mind. This is through Kari's amazing research because she always does the legal stuff. There's a lot of ways that the DA can nail Cora and Paul on those kidnapping charges at the preliminary hearing.
Mama Moo, thank you so much for becoming a member.
Oh my.
We appreciate you.
Yes,
And
thank
Patrick, you're
you.
absolutely right. Patrick, it's the same thing we've been saying too. We are a little bit confused on the whole kidnapping with Cora and Paul, why they have those charges, the others don't, why they were dropped from the others. And that's just something that only time's going to tell. We just don't have that answer.
Well, if they're
But
making
you're not wrong though. You're not
No,
wrong at all.
absolutely not. If they're making deals, it wouldn't make sense to add charges, right? You just keep
Right.
them talking and keep them going and piss off the other 3 that much more. Because when you're mad, you don't think so well, and your strategy goes out the window. Your strategy doesn't go as planned, maybe. We'll put it that way.
Yes. So here's kind of what I came up with why the state might not be charging the others with the kidnapping. I already think that they're not charging them with the new charges because there's some kind of deals going on behind the scenes. But why the state might not be charging Tiffany, Tad, and Cole with kidnapping, different roles in the crime. The prosecution might view Tad, Tiffany, and Cole as playing different roles in the crime, focusing on maybe more of the post-mortem actions or planning rather than direct involvement in the kidnapping or confinement of them.
Mhm.
So does that make sense? So like maybe Cole and Cora, yeah.
Right?
Those two people, that maybe the state thinks that they had more of a role in the kidnapping and confining of rather than the direct, involvement otherwise. So then the possible scenarios, role in the crime after death. Tad, Tiffany, and Cole could be more involved in the removal and burial of the bodies after the murders, which is why they face charges of unlawful removal and desecration of a corpse.
Mhm.
These actions occur after the victims were already deceased, meaning they may not have been directly involved in the quote unquote kidnapping. Evidence doesn't support kidnapping. The state may lack sufficient evidence to prove that Tad, Tiffany, and Cole were involved in the initial abduction or confinement of Veronica and Jilian. The prosecution may have stronger evidence. So it doesn't mean that they may not have any, but they might just have stronger evidence linking Paul and Cora to the kidnapping, such as witness testimony is probably a big one, any kind of surveillance or forensic evidence that places them with the victims during the abduction phase. Dividing responsibility in a complex case involving multiple defendants, such as this, the state might allocate specific charges to different individuals based on their own unique involvement. So, for instance, Paul and Cora might have been involved in the kidnapping. Tad, Tiffany, and Cole could have been responsible for other aspects, such as the planning of it or the body disposal, leading to the desecration charges instead. And then different evidence for each defendant, even though they're combining, at least the preliminary, they still can have different evidence for each defendant. And the strength of the evidence might differ between the 5. So the state might have more direct evidence of Paul and Cora's involvement in the physical confinement of Veronica and Jilian, while the evidence against Tad, Tiffany, and Cole could be focusing more on their roles in the planning and then the aftermath of the murders. So just some thoughts.
Lots of thoughts. So you kind of have to wonder. Well, I guess that's the kidnapping side of it. I won't get into my other idea until a little bit later, but it's interesting that they are changing out the charges
Mhm.
as they are. I have all the questions for that DA. They're not
Yeah.
bad questions, but all the curiosities.
And
Teach me what you
CB,
know.
I think that that's just kind of the general consensus at this point is that Paul and Cora both are assisting the prosecution.
Yes. In fact, we're going to
It's
get
kind of hard
into
not to
Paul's
think that they aren't
right.
really.
And that's what we're gonna discuss later on the show is Paul's motivation. There's always a story that comes in after we do a live about, hey, by the way, and or you see something, you go back and reflect on information. Like say, Kari and I have had to go back through everything, and then we're not even close to going back through everything. So lots of different things to go through and process.
Yeah, Margaret said also as the other defendants see their charges increasing and Paul and Cora's not increasing, it definitely increases the scenario that they're cooperating. And so that
Agreed.
it's just kind of common sense to come to that conclusion. I think we could be wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think so
Yeah.
on that part anyway. Might be the only thing we're right on. But
unless they hitting Tifany and Cole in more charges because they need as much to stick as possible on them, since they already know Tad and Paul that actually did the unaliving, and Tifany and Cora and Cole. So I'm kind of glad you brought that up, and I know I'll probably say it again. I'm kind of wondering, between, let's say Paul and Cora are working with the state, and they're taking a deal, and that deal is life in prison, right? Okay, cool. What, we've seen it in true crime over and over again. You see it in Hollywood over and over again. You get charged with multiple crimes, and the DA's like, I'll drop half of these, but you're going to jail for the rest of your life. So it's like, that's not what they want, right? But it is harder to appeal a plea deal than a conviction. It takes massive amounts of years while you're in prison to appeal your plea deal than your conviction. Even if you are innocent, you took the plea deal because your lawyer told you to, and it was bad advice. I have a specific scenario in my head from the East Coast. So I'm kind of wondering, maybe if they're trying to, the idea is to keep these people put away, because I don't know what the appellate court system looks like in Oklahoma. So I don't know I know in Kansas it's not friendly. So I'm curious if maybe that's part of the strategy, is to keep them locked up. Who knows? It's interesting.
Yeah, and Fancy has a good thought on that. Life is 38.5 years before they're eligible for parole, but life without parole is all the days of your natural life. So if you're facing that, it might make a difference to you, you know. And Shannon had a question. Do you think Veronica's car might have had a dash cam?
I don't think
I've
so.
never thought about that. I don't think so. She said, doesn't seem likely, but maybe a thought.
If it's out there, they've kept that real quiet, like.
Yeah.
And I guess it would surprise me, though, given some of the shenanigans that Veronica had been through with Tifany and her crew. I would maybe that's a possibility. It's an interesting possibility.
It is. We've not thought about that.
It's a good thought. Good one.
Yes, it is. All right. Then on to the next one. Do you want to do this one, Tara?
Yeah, I sure can. So the unlawful removal of a dead body. So what that means is that the defendants are accused of illegally moving the bodies of Veronica Butler, which is count 4, and Jilian Kelley, count 5, from the original place of death without authorization from the district attorney or medical examiner. So punishment for this charge carries up to 5 years in prison, up to 1 year in county jail, and a fine of up to $5,000 or both. And now how the state arrived at this charge is that there's evidence that the bodies were moved. The prosecution likely has evidence showing that the victims' bodies were relocated after they were killed. So this could involve forensic evidence such as blood patterns, drag marks, or testimonies from witnesses who observed the movement of the bodies. Lack of authorization is the removal of bodies without official authorization. Hold on, let me say that again. The removal of bodies without official authorization is illegal in Oklahoma. And if the bodies were moved to hide the crime, this charge applies to that as well. The evidence needed at the preliminary hearing for this charge is forensic evidence proving that the bodies were removed after death. So this includes signs of tampering with the bodies or the crime scene, witnesses who saw or heard the bodies being transported, and then phone or GPS data showing the defendant's movements after the murders, possibly matching the time when the bodies were moved.
And we know we have that already.
We have the burner phones, absolutely, because the burner phones pinged at the location where the car was discovered, and they pinged at the location on Beasley's property where the bodies were discovered. So we know we have those for sure.
And hello, Phoebe. Thank you for joining us.
Phoebe, is Phoebe the attorney? Are you that fabulous attorney friend that we have? I can't remember if you were the attorney friend or have had a background in that, but I know it's been put out there on chat before. I wouldn't have just said it openly like that now that I think about it, but I did that right. But it's good to see you, Phoebe. Let us know.
And then Run for Justice, a good comment. In the Dan Markle murder, the shooter turned state's witness and only received 25 years. And then the other co-conspirators received life without prison. So turning state witness.
Life without parole, not life without prison.
Did I say life without prison?
Yes, that's awesome. I would
I
I would
give
approve
up.
of I would approve my life without prison.
I
That would
would
be great.
prefer that they have life with prison. Sorry. Where did that even come
I
from?
don't know, but I'm like, wow, that's
Oh,
gonna come back on as I hear that one now.
right?
That's gonna be beautiful. Somebody screen record that
Oh,
one for us for
that's
later.
funny.
That's awesome.
Casey
Oh,
said,
Phoebe, no, I only have family in the law. Okay, cool. But I know we've talked, so I was trying to remember, but thank you. Oh, goodness. Okay, so hi, Yep. Yep is in the house.
"Hi, yep.
Oh, you
Good
are
to see you, girl."
it has it been said that the women were deceased at the scene or after placed in the freezer? That information has not been clarified. The theory is they were deceased at the scene. There's a lot of talk about the amount of blood that was at the scene. It would just be hard to imagine. And another creator had just talked about this over the weekend, and that's something else we'll discuss later on the show. So it sounds like most likely deceased at the scene.
And I think all the court documents kind of imply that too.
Hmm.
They to me, they imply more that it was, there at the scene rather than over on, the Beasley's property.
Right, which is exactly
Sure.
what the movement of a dead body and the desecration of a human corpse is all about. They're trying to tell us that something happened at the scene that was enough to add these charges to there. So there's some sort of evidence that leads into that.
Right. Yep, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah,
rough.
I'm glad you're doing better too. Holy crow.
Yes, take care of yourself.
Please. Alrighty.
All right. So, unlawful desecration of a human corpse. I hate that term. Counts 6 and 7. What it
Hmm.
means, the defendants are charged with desecrating the bodies of Veronica Butler, count 6, and Jilian Kelley, count 7, by burying the bodies in a way that tampered with the crime scene and it impeded the investigation. The crime is punishable by up to 7 years in prison. God, you'd think it'd be a lot more than that. A fine of up to 8,000 or both. How the state may possibly have arrived at the charge, evidence of tampering with the bodies. The state likely has evidence showing that the bodies were disposed of or buried in a way that hindered the investigation, such as hiding evidence or deliberately covering up the deaths. We know that that is the case. Burying the bodies, burial of the victims' bodies to conceal the crime also qualifies as desecration under Oklahoma law. So both of those points would apply to these two charges.
Yeah.
The evidence needed at preliminary hearing, most likely forensic evidence from the burial site, um, for instance, how and where the bodies were buried, DNA or trace evidence linking the defendants to the burial site. So hair, fingerprints, blood, things like that. We know they took DNA swabs, they took blood samples from the scene as well. And then testimony from anyone who witnessed the burial or helped in the disposal of the bodies.
So that's it's I don't want to say it's not as bad as it sounds because it still sounds bad, but
Right.
ultimately you can't be messing with a human after their life has ended. That's not your
Yeah.
job. You're not supposed to be doing anything. It's one thing if you're attempting to save a life. I know that my beau and I, we had to move a body because we had just been called by the neighbor. My husband, he's on the floor, he's collapsed. We get there, he's clearly not with us anymore, but we did like flip him over and tried performing CPR because that's instinctively the right thing to do. Call 911. They perform CPR for 45 more minutes. So that's a different type of movement when it comes to that situation. This is got a whole other intent behind it.
Yeah. And blonde, and I see Yep just answered that too. Yeah, the typos are not uncommon. Like we were saying when we started, we're humans. A human had to type it up, a human had to enter it. And those errors do unfortunately happen. But the courts definitely know who they're speaking of. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue at all, other than, maybe they should proofread them a little bit better out of respect, I would think, but yeah, I don't think it'll be like a legal issue at all. No.
No, I don't think so either. see. Patrick says you can lose too much blood and with medical treatment survive. It's very rare though. I bled out 3.6 liters internally and doctors revived me and I barely survived. My dad went through something very similar. So it's possible, but in this particular case, I think with the additional charges of the desecration and moving of a corpse, I think that is very indicative of what happened at the crime scene.
Right. And I have to upload, I'm uploading the next set because the file was too big for StreamYard.
So big. See me go through some of the other comments. Let's see. I'll have to go back up because we went through those. Liters or pints, Patrick? That could be a good point. I don't know. Let's see. Perhaps one of the 5 gave that information. The ladies were murdered on the spot. Probably so. I think Paul has provided a lot of useful information. I think that's where, when you go back and look at the dates of the arrest warrants, the dates of those documents that came out, it looks like somebody was chatting up a storm prior to their arrest. So, and I have heard that, and it's hard to prove it because I can't get it, but it sounds like Paul maybe talked with OSBI, did an interview, was allowed to leave the interview to take care of some things before he was to surrender himself. And so I think we have to remember that that's in consideration as well.
Tara, I'm going to let you read this. I'm going to do my dirty cigarette. I'm going to turn off my camera for a minute. Sorry.
She's not sorry. She's just going to go off camera. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Margaret. I like it too. She
really
said, I
cool.
like your spooky backdrop.
It's
Thank you.
awesome.
I have fun making them when I'm bored. All right. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
I will carry on. So child neglect, which are counts 8 and 9, what that means is Tifany Adams is accused of neglecting children by exposing them to illegal activity, specifically by having KR, who is 6 years old, and CR, who is 8 years old, help carry a ratchet strap that was used later to wrap the freezer containing the bodies. Punishment of this charge could be up to life in prison, up to 1 year in a county jail, a fine between 500 or 5,000, all of the above. So how the state may have come to this charge. So involvement of children in the crime. The prosecution likely has evidence showing that the children were directly involved in carrying tools such as the ratchet strap that was used in the disposal of the body. So even if the children did not fully understand what they were doing, exposing them to this illegal activity qualifies as child neglect. The evidence needed at the preliminary hearing for this charge is testimony or surveillance showing the children carrying the ratchet strap. Statements from witnesses or CW, who again is the minor witness, that placed the children at the scene. And then video footage from Guyman Tractor Supply, where the ratchet straps were purchased. So that's funny, right, for Josh. You can actually see what the cool emojis are when you have my readers on. That's why I have to wear my damn readers during all of the lives. I can't see the screen anymore, but I'm pretty sure I have the wrong contact lens prescription. So ultimately what this charge is saying, what these charges are offering, is that Tifany Adams had the kids in the tractor supply shop there in Guyman. She picked out the ratchet straps that she was going to use on the freezer that the women were found in. And instead of her carrying them, and she may have had her hands full, she may not thought anything of it, whatever, maybe the kids wanted to carry it, who knows? In either case, the intent on the children's part or the understanding on the children's part is not necessary. It's what Tifany planned to do with this. So they're saying she intentionally purchased the ratchet straps for the crime and the children carried them, which yields to child neglect. I am interested in understanding that Oklahoma law better, because that is basically, that's helping in the execution of a crime to a point. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm really, really eager to hear how they're going to get that charge to stick, or if they're trying to make sure they put Tifany away forever without much of an appeal system that would be one of those things like, we could take that one off if you really want us to. You won't look like such a bad grandma. But it is
there's,
kind of creepy.
like they're giving her child neglect charges. Well, what about Cora and Cole and, potentially, one or two others. So yeah, curious.
Yeah.
I completely understand why Tifany has these 100% because of having the kids carry the straps that Tifany knew for sure were being purchased
Yeah.
to use in the process of the murders. So I understand that. But I don't understand why the others don't also have it because as we know, Cora's daughter was told to clean up a truck. Her friend was made to help. There's some other things there. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of interesting why the others don't.
It's something
And
crazy.
Winnie said, I am so happy to see his charge. It ensures she never sees the kiddos again. That is a very good point, too, that I had
I
not thought
hope
about, Winnie.
so.
Yes,
I
thank
hope
you.
so. Hello, alive in the 405. We're happy to see you too. And then Margaret says Tia gave no thought to her grandchildren's psychological damage when they grow up and learn full facts of the death of them. No joke.
Yeah.
No joke at all. Unreal. That's one of the things that I've had a few conversations with folks who they're not very many but you try, right? When you want to understand the case, you want to hear every side to a person's personality. And so trying to find people who were friends with Tifany have been hard. The kind of friends that
Right.
are like, there's no way, so shocked, can't believe she's a great person. It's been hard to find those people. And I have found a couple. And though they say she was just protecting her grandkids from, the issues they may have been dealing with and, trying to continue to protect them. And I make it clear that I have been in those situations to a um, very severe degree. And I'll tell you what, my parents going after somebody else that wronged me doesn't do me any good. The
Right.
protection factor is over at this point. Now it's the um, now it's the reactive and it's actually the response. It's get help, find therapy. What are the tools? Make sure that things are kind of packaged back up so that that little person who has been hurt can move forward. And so I call shenanigans on the whole. And I've seen To Kill a Mockingbird. I've seen those kind of shows and I get it. Those are extremely severe situations too. Extreme.
Well,
Um,
and it doesn't matter, whether it doesn't matter what happened. There's
yeah.
no excuse for five people to brutally murder two women. I
Mhm.
don't care what the reason was. Just not excusable. It's not a good reason. It's none of the above. I
Yep.
just don't buy it. I don't buy it at all.
Agreed.
Patrick said, I wonder if more charges are still to come. Well, if you ask Karen,
Oh,
I will say probably so.
I think so. After this, when we found out about these charges, Carrie and I were like, "Whoa, that's unexpected." And
Now,
so
will there be more charges for other people? That I'm not sure of yet. I
I
mean, I still kind of go back and forth with it.
I have people telling me that there are. I have people
Yeah.
who strongly believe that more people will be arrested. So
Mhm.
I think it's say that
It
louder
could
for the people
happen.
in the back. Uh, let's take that over to Shenanigans Narcissist Hunter. I'll be happy to. And that will be one of those complicated conversations we'll have at some point.
Oh,
Ugh.
speaking of, that's a good segue into it real fast.
Try that.
Tara has a live tomorrow night,
Oh, yeah.
and it is about experiencing experiences in parenting hell, custody battles, and co-parenting. This should be a good one.
And it
So
won't
I'm
be
gonna
the
put the
only
link.
one. It's gonna be a series, so we'll have part 1 tomorrow night. Shenanigans is moving to Tuesday nights because the crew is trying to it works better for the crew. And so it's gonna take 2 or 3 parts minimal to get
Yes.
through this conversation because everybody has got some sort of parenting horror hell story to tell, and we really wanna hear those experiences. So
Yes. I
we are
think we all probably have
stoked
one.
about this. The
Um,
crew is excited.
I don't know if you want to address this or not, Tara, but oh, I hope there's a no contact order between Tifany and Veronica's kids. She should not even be allowed to speak to them on the phone.
So I would address this way. At this point in time, all of the um, minor witnesses, minor victims are all minors. So whomever they are with, if it's a guardian, if it's a family member, whoever has the legal decision making power has the power to say, no, you don't. I get to make that decision and you don't. So I don't know where these minors are all at, but I can tell you the law says whoever the guardian is, and I'm guaranteeing you, if they're not with family members that are guardians, they are with legal guardians. Somebody is in a position to make decisions like this for these minors. So I would say, even if Tifany is trying or the others are trying to contact their minor sons and daughters or what have you, regardless of their involvement or lack thereof, they can be told, no way, no. So I don't think I haven't seen any paperwork out there that suggests there's any kind of orders or protect from abuse or, any of those kind of things. I haven't seen any of those between Cimarron or Texas County. But you have to know which county to look at. You have to know
And
where
it could
to
be
find the
sealed as well.
Yeah, because they're minors. So
Mhm.
I hope they are not contact. And I can't imagine that. Isn't there normally like some sort of a gag order, Kari, when there's like in this kind of situation? Isn't it automatic? Like you can't contact this person because they're witness. They are DA side. You are defense side. You guys can't talk, particularly if they're minors. Like that's got to be a legal thing, I would think.
You would think so. On the other hand, there's the innocent till proven guilty. So I just am not positive about that.
You know how I feel about that.
The link for Tara's live tomorrow night is pinned in the comments. So if you guys will join us, what time is that tomorrow night, Tara?
It's scheduled for 7:15, which is an odd time. I know everybody gets mad at
Oh.
me. The crew does. They're like, "Why 7:15?"
And
Because it
then
makes me remember.
next week, she plans on moving it to Tuesdays.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to do an additional live on Thursday nights.
Yes.
Who knows what? I don't know what.
We've got some other things. We've got some very interesting cases and some I haven't even
Yeah.
Kari into it yet.
There's so many cases I follow so closely that I would really love to cover. So
Yes.
the
And I'm gonna
cook
make her
packed
let
up
me
and
come
moved.
along.
What's that?
And I'm gonna make her bring me along.
Yes, 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 of course.
So
The
yes.
cook's packed up and moved.
Yes, they have. They have. They're not far. I'm not gonna say where they're at. I do have an understanding of the general location. Even though I was given that information, I refuse to ask specifics because that's a boundary I'm not willing to cross. And especially since I'm not an agency that needs to be interested in their location, I don't think I need to be knowing that anyway. So yes, they have relocated.
Yes, yes. And if you guys real fast, just take 1 second and go out and hit the like button real quick. We really appreciate that. Margaret has a question. I don't know the answer to this though. Does anyone think Tifany might try for grandparent neglect motion? I'm not
Whoa.
sure what that is. I know it would never be granted, but I can definitely see her doing it.
So does Oklahoma have grandparent rights
Yes, we
laws?
do.
Okay, so then that's probably what that's attached to, I
Okay.
imagine. And I would say, would
Yeah.
you have a case if you're sitting behind bars?
No.
I was, God.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Oh. So I don't know what to do with that comment. I heard through the grapevine the defense was allegedly looking for one witness. I don't know, but I can start sniffing around that idea. And that's part of the thing too. Sometimes people won't speak up unless we ask or say the right thing. So if there's another witness, I know that there's probably some people that thought would be witnesses that are not, but
Right.
I don't know. I'm just saying if Wrangler were to get custody back, I could see him letting his mother talk to them. And yes, I agree. And I've looked into this particular situation in Oklahoma. And I can tell you that his road to recovery with his custody he's got his work cut out for him.
Yes, it does. It's not going to be probably with even the next year. It's going to be a while. There's
It
a
will be.
lot surrounding, from the very beginning. There's
Yes,
cases in Kansas. There's other things going on, not just this. So,
correct.
or I don't want somebody take that wrong. I'm not saying currently. I'm saying in the past. So, obviously he can work towards that, and that's going to be in the court's hands. I don't know. I
So
wish him the best, though. I truly do.
oh yeah,
I do wish him the
he's got
best.
a family, he's got his
Mhm.
wife, and they've got kids, and absolutely, we want he's not had an easy life, that much has been made very clear to us.
Yes.
I feel for him to that point if he's already been through the
Mhm.
ringer, rehab, and he's got some charges that he's had to deal with, and we've seen the statements through the courts about, some things that his mother has said to him, so I know that kind of mom. My mother has said things to me as well that would shock some people. So it sucks for him because if I don't know the last time he saw his kids, and they're at such fun ages, and so
Well, and
my
it
heart
had to have
goes
been quite a while because Veronica hadn't seen him since early last year, and I believe in
Mhm.
those documents it said Wrangler hadn't been able to either because Tifany was keeping them
Yeah,
or, from both of them, so we don't know how long it's been either, and it's a sad situation, and, yeah,
it is.
we both hope that he is able to, recover successfully, so
Agreed.
and, yeah, no one wishes an addict to fail. It's just
Good
no, we
lord,
don't.
no. So, I will say that there was a comment, and I think it's been removed. It looks like you removed it,
I
Kari.
removed it.
So there's a
Not
comment
out
where
of meanness, but
no, no, no,
just
that's why I want to so when it
yeah.
comes to the location of, the minors, we do not wanna spotlight that. There is no need to add unnecessary stress or worry or pressure to any individual who's trying to help these children out, be it family or a legal guardian. I know there's no ill intent in the comment whatsoever. Everybody's been wanting to know how the kids are, what's up, how all the minors are doing. And so we are going to be very, very protective of that particular boundary. So that's where that's coming from. So if you saw that your comment was deleted, that's why. That's just one of those boundaries, but we're not ready to go there yet.
Yeah. So, moving on to the preliminary hearing, of course, that starts December 17th,
Oh,
18th, 19th, and 20th, I believe. Um, what can we expect? So, I think at the preliminary hearing for the defense in this case, we can expect several key legal proceedings to take place. The purpose of the hearing is for the judge to determine whether there is enough evidence, probable cause, to move the case forward to a full trial. And so here's a breakdown of what you can expect. Presentation of evidence by the prosecution. Now, this is going to be like a condensed version of what a trial would be, basically. The prosecution will focus on presenting sufficient evidence to show that the defendants did, in fact, commit the crimes that they're charged with. And that'll include witness testimony. So, key witnesses, the prosecution will most likely call key witnesses who have firsthand knowledge of the events, such as CW or other individuals who were involved or who saw or heard important aspects of the case. And that could include witnesses that saw or heard conversation between the defendants regarding the conspiracy to murder charge. Maybe they observed oh my gosh, I'm fumbling. Paul and Cora's involvement in kidnapping or transporting the victims. And in that case, that would be the restraint part, the blocking off the road or something to that extent. Saw or heard the removal and burial of the bodies after the murders. The testimony of CW, the minor, could be crucial if they were present during conversations or events where the defendants discussed the murder plot or where they were involved in buying items that were used in the crime, such as the ratchet straps, the burner phones, the stun guns, things like that. And then, of course, forensic and physical evidence. The prosecution will likely present the forensic evidence that links the defendants to the crime scene and the bodies of Veronica and Jilian. And that could include DNA evidence found on the victims' bodies at the burial site or on items such as clothing, tools, or weapons. Analysis of the bodies and evidence showing how the bodies were moved or buried, such as maybe any drag marks or signs of tampering, fingerprints, blood evidence, or other forensic links to the defendants. And then, of course, digital evidence. And we know that there's quite a bit of that. The
mhm.
prosecution may also use digital evidence to show coordination between the defendants, such as their phone records, those burner phones, showing calls or text messages between them in the days leading up to and following the murders. the GPS data or location tracking, and we know they have that as well, that places the defendants near the crime scene or locations where the bodies were moved and buried. And they have both. So they have them at the crime scene and at the place they buried them. Evidence of the burner phone purchases and other items bought by the defendants in preparation for the crimes. And then any surveillance footage. Now, out there, I don't know how much they're going to have, but if available, the surveillance footage from places like the Tractor Supply where she bought the straps. Key items like the ratchet straps that were purchased may be presented. So this could show the defendants and possibly even the children being involved in buying items used in the disposal of the bodies. And do we have any comments? Winnie said, as an adoptive mom in Oklahoma, I know the bio dad will have the most rights if he does exactly as the law expects. Yes. I do hope there is healing in the end for all the victims. Very well said.
Very much so.
And then defense cross-examination and strategy. So the defense attorneys, now remember, I said at the beginning, I said in the middle, we're not attorneys. This is just my thinking here. The defense attorneys for each of the defendants will have the opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses and challenge the evidence presented by the prosecution. So some possible defense strategies. And this way I really would like an attorney to speak, a defense attorney specifically. But challenging the evidence, of course, the defense may argue that the forensic evidence is weak or that it does not directly tie their clients to the crimes. For example, they might question whether the DNA or other physical evidence truly links their client to the murder or burial, and whether the phone records or digital data prove involvement in the murder or just association with the other defendants, because they can be just chatting but not be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Challenging witness credibility. This is one I am a little concerned about. If the prosecution relies heavily on witness testimony, then the defense may try to discredit the witnesses by questioning their credibility or motives. For example, the defense could argue that CW's testimony is unreliable because of the age or the circumstances under which the child observed the events. And I just hope that she doesn't get hammered. I really worry about that. And then arguing for lesser roles, and this very likely will be the case. The defense for Paul and Cora might argue that their clients did not play an active role in the actual murders or the handling of the bodies, but were instead involved in lesser roles, perhaps just providing assistance without full knowledge of the conspiracy. For example, they could argue that Paul and Cora had nothing to do with the kidnapping, but they were only present after the murders, or that they played a minimal role in the burial. So just a few different scenarios on what the defense could do. A lot of times it's going to be on, they'll try to get them on technicalities and stuff like that if the evidence is strong enough, and they try on technicalities. So
Mm-hmm.
sharing and caring with Miss Chewy. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. So very disturbing what people resort to gain custody. So many cases. Yes. That's why I'm so glad, Tara, you're doing that live tomorrow night
Mm-hmm.
on parenting, custody battles, things like that, because it falls right in with this. It falls right in with Sebastian Rogers' case. And I think so many of us will be able to relate to it.
Oh God, and that's unfortunate too, but that's where we're at.
All right. You want to grab this one?
I can. So focus on specific charges. During the preliminary hearing, the prosecution will address each of the key charges against the defendant. So these will include murder and conspiracy. The prosecution will present evidence that the defendants were involved in a premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. So this involves showing that they had actively planned and coordinated the murders rather than it being maybe a spontaneous or unplanned event. The evidence needed would be phone records, witness testimony, and physical evidence. Those will all be key in showing the coordination and planning of the murders. The kidnapping, which is specific to Paul and Cora, the prosecution will focus on proving their involvement in the kidnapping of the victims. So they're going to need to show that Paul and Cora unlawfully detained or moved the victims before they were killed. The evidence for this includes testimony from witnesses or GPS data showing that Paul and Cora were with the victims when they were abducted or transported. And then we have unlawful removal of bodies and desecration of corpses. The state's going to need to prove that the defendants moved the bodies of the victims without authorization and that they buried or concealed the bodies to cover up the crime. And then additional evidence that would be needed is forensic evidence from the burial site, including fingerprints or DNA, linking the defendants to the movement and burial of the bodies. And then finally, on the child neglect, the prosecution is going to have to focus on proving that Tifany Adams involved the children in the commission of the crime, exposing them to illegal activity by having them help carry the ratchet straps or witness parts of the criminal actions. Other evidence that could be needed is surveillance footage, witness testimony, and possibly statements from the children themselves. So lots to unpack there.
Yes. Margaret has a good question. If the DA gets Cora's cooperation against other defendants, could that remove CW's need to testify? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
unfortunately, Cora's the information that CW provided was not towards Cora alone. It was beyond that, and so I don't think that it would be great, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't think that's gonna help.
I'm just agreeing. Yes, Grizzly's lipstick is very pretty on her.
That's awesome.
All right. So then possible outcomes of the preliminary hearing. I think we all know where it's going to go, but we'll go here. The case moves to trial. If the judge finds that the prosecution has presented enough probable cause for the charges, then the case will move forward to a full trial. And at this point, the defendants will face the possibility of being convicted by a jury. And there could also be dismissal of certain charges, and I do expect that there will be. Very seldom does every single charge hold up. A lot of times that's why they throw the book at them per se, because they know the state knows that some of those will be dismissed. They'll be dropped. So the judge could dismiss certain charges if the prosecution fails to present enough evidence to support them. For example, if the evidence for kidnapping is weak or circumstantial, then the judge might dismiss that charge, but still allow the murder and conspiracy charges to proceed. Plea negotiations. So after the preliminary hearing, both sides may enter into plea negotiations, where some defendants may plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for reduced sentences. This could happen if the defense believes that the evidence is strong and wants to avoid the risk of harsher sentences at trial. So even after the preliminaries, there could still be plea negotiations. Margaret is asking, why no grand jury? Good question.
I'd have to look at the difference between a grand jury indictment and a preliminary hearing. So that's something we'll come back to you on that one. That's a great one.
Yeah, it is.
Good call.
I'll do some research on that and I will post it in our group.
Yes. That would be awesome.
It'll take me a little bit to research that. I'm not sure. You asked in the live chat. Oh, you were asking Grizzly in the live chat. Yeah. She's got like 5,000 people in her chat.
It's just starting from the start, Kelsey. We're glad you're here, Kelsey. We're glad you're here, Kelsey. Oh my gosh, words are not fun tonight. I'm struggling with Paul and Cora so much. Gosh.
Did I already do that one? I did. Okay.
You did that one, yep.
Conclusions, what to expect. The preliminary hearing is a crucial step where the prosecution will present its case to show there's enough evidence to move to a trial. The defense will have the chance to challenge the evidence and argue for the dismissal of certain charges. The focus is going to be on witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and digital records, which will all be used to establish probable cause for charges including murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, unlawful removal of bodies, desecration of corpses, and child neglect. And then the judge's decision will determine whether the case goes to trial or if some charges are dropped. And plea negotiations may follow if the defendants believe the case against them is strong. And yes, in the BK Idaho 4 case, the DA had secret grand jury indictment bypassing the preliminaries.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why
Hmm.
that's not done here, but I'll look into it for sure. I'll look into that. All right, so that is the conclusion of that. This, Tara, is on you.
You're going to have to manipulate the slides because
Okay,
you
fine.
have the power. So what we're going
Right.
to do here, there's a lot of different stories and items out there that are circulating around this case. So we wanted to take some of those and just address them really quickly. I say there's a few. There's 2 slides of this, so just bear with us. With the new charges specific to the desecration of I think it's desecration of a human corpse and then moving a body. That brought forth a lot of speculation, a lot of ideas that maybe something happened more. And so there was a comment made somewhere. It has come up that there was a broken axe or a broken saw. And so there's been nothing in any of the court documents or in any of the conversations that Kari and I have had that have led to the idea of a broken saw or a broken axe, but a broken hammer. Yes, that has been pointed out multiple times. It was at the crime scene. So just want to kind of put that one to bed. We've not heard anything about a broken axe or a broken saw. Now, this leads into, because these charges and because of this broken axe or broken saw, this led into the idea that, and I worded this as delicately as possible, okay, so that the bodies had been
Right.
manipulated in such a way to accommodate the available space. So I will say that again, because that's a lot of words to say something that's very simple, but very gory,
Sensitive. Yes.
sensitive. So the bodies were manipulated in such a way as to accommodate available space. Now, this is unfounded. It was never brought up before, but because of the new charges specific to the desecration, it became an easy thing to believe. But again, when we put documents out there, specifically these documents, the post included the suggestion that you use Google to define some words like desecration. It's not always as scary as it sounds. And so, as Kari pointed out in a slide earlier, desecration could be burying a body. Could be just that simple. So we wanted to address that one right away. And Patrick says there was a saw handle found in hole with the knife. I'll have to go back. I don't remember that detail, but the last time you corrected us on a detail, you were spot on. So we'll definitely look at that.
I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah. So in terms of these documents, legal wording can be gross. It can be hard to understand. And legal wording is not designed for us to use in everyday language. So our everyday conversations, our everyday emails, our everyday text, that's not how it's not operating the same way. So if there's an attorney in the house and if you kind of want to get a hold of us and let us know, please do. We will totally take the corrections and the support. And yeah, Patrick, Kari's going to look that up right now because that would be very good to know. Because I do remember the knife. I'm pretty sure I remember that, but we'll come back on that in just a second. There's been it's come to the attention that the vehicle was moved at least once, if not twice, with regards to the attack. So there's varying reports on this. It's not been officially confirmed by anybody that Kari or I know. I've talked with the other creator that has reported this information, and all that comes down to is sources are different. And so we can't prove it was not moved any more than we can prove it was moved. But I had not heard those reports until I had that conversation with that creator. And he's been great in his reporting too. So it's like, man, you kind of want to look into that, but we can't prove it either way. And Kari, it sounds like you're looking for a black saw handle with possible blood. Search warrant regarding the hole is what you're looking for. Thank you, Patrick. That's super helpful.
Well, if I can find the one that has, so I have all the search warrants, but the evidence that was retrieved that they found, that's
Is
what
it
I'm
going to
looking
be
for
that
here.
one, or will it be Paul Grice's arrest? Because I know there's
No,
a
it would be
really
in
big one.
The search warrant would be, I mean, what came back from all the search warrants.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's the evidence that they did find. So
Okay.
that's what I'm
Cool.
looking for here.
And so, and then there is another. So we're not, as far as we are understanding. I had never thought the car had moved. That was always my theory. The car never moved from the spot where the attacks took place. So it'll be very interesting. The preliminary hearing is probably going to address that. So it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. And then another thing I've heard off and on is that Beasley knew that he was aware of what was going on his property. And a lot of um, the strength to that argument was, how could you not know? It's your property. How would you not know? And so I've talked with several individuals down there in that area that lease land and they work land. And I have been told that when you lease land, you do so because it's just easier to cash a check versus working the land, especially if you have a lot to work. It's easier to piece it out. Sometimes you don't want to work the land, and sometimes you do want to work the land. And so it's very common in that area, from what I've been told, and there may be different experiences in the chat, that if you are leasing your land, you just cash the check, and the expectation is you treat the land as your own. That way, the leaseor does not have to worry about what the leasee is doing. And I know Kari and I actually, we addressed this in the last live, that Beasley may never have been home. All he knew, per the report on one of the arrest warrants and one of the court documents, was that Tad asked to come out to the property the day before the murders and do some tree work. He wanted to remove a tree or something along those lines. And Beasley's like, yeah, go ahead, whatever. And so that is what we understand about that. And so there's some comments coming in I want to address. So Mama Moo says, we have land that we lease. We haven't been to it in a year. So there's somebody that can qualify that statement there. Somebody says, I remember I saw found in hike. I think fancy ass means whole. Yep, they corrected themselves, whole.
Black handle of saw. This was found on Beasley's property. Black handle of saw. There was a roll of duct tape.
Okay. So
Taser,
was there anything on the
flashlight.
saw?
There's an electrical cord, small black tape, black K-bar knife and sheath. Just the handle of a saw.
So it makes you wonder, if we've got a trailer, we've got trucks, and if DNA is getting, if DNA is getting, I'll call it recklessly spread around because it's a brutal attack. I would imagine you're going to get rid of anything that's in your truck, your trailer, and throw it into the hole with it. Anything that has any kind of DNA, I would imagine. Thank you, Patrick, for catching that.
I want to point out one thing in that. Let's see. I can share this. Is that sharing? Okay. If you notice, okay, so I took all of these directly from the search warrants returned, meaning this is when they got the search warrants, this is what they got back from them, right? And every single one of these says with possible blood, with possible blood, possible blood. All of these say that. The only thing that doesn't is a black handle of a saw. That's it.
Okay.
And the ratchet strap. That doesn't say with possible blood either. Just those two things. Everything else.
Okay.
For the most part, goes with possible. So hard telling, but
yeah, hard telling. And I think the rhetoric I had heard was the saw was found at the site. So this is even more, but it's easy, right? We didn't even remember that per se, and so there's so many details. It's hard to keep it straight. Thank God we have Patrick keeping us honest because
Patrick's got a good memory.
He's got a great memory. And so I'm glad, and this is the very thing. If we miss it, then tell us. But at the same time, and I think I saw it. Where did I see it at? Somebody made an interesting point. Margaret, I think it was you that made. Okay, there it is. Trigger warning. From my knowledge, NYC mafia cases, it takes a lot of human strength.
Yes, and a lot of time.
Things through limbs. So
a lot of time. And Tara and I talked about this the other day, I think, didn't we?
Yes.
The amount of time that they had, I don't think that they had that kind of time on their hands. I really, truly do not think they did.
No, I think we're going to figure out this was, it didn't go as planned. And what time did CW mention Cora and Cole got back? because they had the conversation. That's when things didn't go as planned. I'm gonna have to ask Patrick if he remembers that, because he's like a human computer over here.
Yeah, I can look it up, but Patrick might remember. I don't remember. Why do I still have my
So there's
camera off?
another one.
I'm
Perry
sorry.
Sage. Perry Sage says, correct. We farm some ground for other as well as our own, and we operate the leased ground as if it's ours. So it's good that that's qualified, because that's stuff that I can't go down there and disprove. I'm not going to go down and watch somebody, but that's very good to
Yeah.
know. Don't believe Beasley knew exactly what was going on, especially not what was planned. I'm not at that level yet, but I haven't focused. I'm not sure what was going on there. Kelsey says, sorry, we're watching, so can't hear you. If you could comment if anybody wants to reply. So it sounds like she started from the beginning, and that's totally fine. Let me see, come down here a little bit.
Shoot, I already forgot what I was looking for. What was I looking for, you guys?
You found it, the saw handle.
No, there was something else that we were looking for.
Oh, what time CW said Cora got home. So yeah, there's more than 2 sets of clothes. Yeah, I believe that those clothes were
CW.
Chad's and Paul's.
I'm sorry. CW awoke at approximately 10 o'clock. Cole and Cora were not home, but came home around noon.
Okay.
So that's like
That's very fast. It's 9:42.
2
The phone's
hours.
pinged last. And to be, so I don't think we have enough time to do any kind of manipulation to the bodies.
I don't either.
So maybe it's possible. I don't know. Maybe there's some other things out there we don't know are evidence. I'm just not, I don't see enough here to buy into that theory at all. So
yeah, anything at this point is possible, I think, but I think that that's maybe a reach based on what we know at this point. That might be a little bit of a reach. God, I hate to think that too.
I know it. Me too. So some other rumors. Oh, my hair knotted up. Okay, so this is something that Kari and I talked about, because we went to the September court hearing. We got to see these 5 in real time, in real life. Not as spooky as I thought it would be, not as creepy, not as surreal, because they don't announce these folks when they come in. All of a sudden, you just see somebody in orange stripes. You're like, oh, that's Tad. Cool, we're doing this. And so we didn't see much of any kind of remorse or guilt or shame from the other 4. But Paul, we noticed, was always looking down, wouldn't make eye contact with anybody. Just was not, his nonverbal communication was not interactive. And then when he did address the judge, it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, and and always looking down, would not look at the judge. And so we thought maybe he really does feel remorseful. And we had heard some things from some people who know him that he does feel shame. He does feel guilt. He knows what he did was wrong. And then I had a couple reach out to me and said, yeah, why don't you go back through some of the stuff you guys have read before? Why don't you go back through some of the things you've said before about Paul and reflect? And so, okay, so we go back through. And I remembered that Paul had renounced his citizenship to the United States of America, but not to the land she is on, which is God's given land, making him a national American citizen. And that the article regarding his dad, he was a pastor, I believe, and how he was in a vehicle, picked up a couple of hitchhikers and started talking religion. They're like, that's not for us, whatever. And he pulls out a gun and says, if I shot you, where do you think you would go? And then, so it got me to thinking, it's like, and I've heard some horror stories about Paul out there and the way he was raised. And I thought, maybe, are we really guilty feeling, or did he grow up in such a way with such a dad who was willing to pull a gun on a couple of strangers and challenge them as to where their afterlife was, that maybe it wasn't guilt. It was more like a, damn it, I've upset dad. I have upset authority. I've been caught in that kind of that shameful, I'm bad, I'm going to get in trouble, I'm going to get hurt, this is not working out to my favor. So I'm questioning some things now. I'm really reflecting on, after going back through the anti-government stuff and that article from his dad. It's like maybe he did strike a deal versus trying to do the right thing after the fact. I'm not sure. But it's things like that make you backpedal a little bit and review everything as a whole. So, but different people have different experiences, and that's the other thing we have to remember too. Some people, I know somebody who's close to Paul, and they say that this individual that did these things is not the person that they know.
Right.
And so it's, but when you ask anybody about Tifany, they're like, that's easy to believe. And there's a couple who are like, that is not easy to believe. So,
Yeah.
and then there's been a lot of questions and rumors about the severity of the injury to Paul's hand. We've heard it was wrapped fairly significantly, and then we've heard it was a Band-Aid. And those are very different things. And so what's important to remember there is that Paul was not arrested right away. He could have had, a significant bandage on his hand at one day when somebody saw him, maybe the day after at the pageant. And then a few days later, maybe that wasn't so bad and it had begun its healing process. And so maybe, a decent sized Band-Aid would have held together. I don't know. No, it's just one of those things where you have to take in the timeline and take in the context of things to actually understand what that actually means, and what a Band-Aid to one person and a heavily wrapped hand to another. Those are two very big extremes. And so some of those things might be a little subjective. And then the biggie is the pictures leaked. And so I have talked with, as most of you know, Derek Relaford did a live over the weekend, and there were some responses to that live. And he did not post the pictures on his Facebook. He posted a description, very detailed, of those photos. And I think he went into some of that description over his live, and but he didn't actually post the photos. And so they're not leaked crime scene photos. They didn't come from anybody in law enforcement. Derek received them from somebody else. And I don't know if they were second or third hand or whatever, but he did receive them, and he didn't post them. He just described them. Somebody did not care for the description, made a comment to Derek, and Derek took them down pretty quickly after that. And so, but that is what's going on with that. Now, it's important to put that out there because it's alarming to hear that kind of information in picture form was out there. And it makes somebody sound so questionable. And I don't think this is very much questionable. I think that I think he did the right thing by just trying to describe them to give an idea. And he was one of the first out there. He's one of the first to figure it out. He's been on this kind of from the beginning, though he's not a big true crimer person. He's doing the Elkhart movie, and that's his passion, and that's where he wants to focus on. And he's done great work with that.
But he did go by the scene.
Yes, and he did go by the scene, and he's got drive-by video of the scene. And but to say that he received some crime scene photos from different law enforcement officials, or something nefarious took place, I think somebody it's not that hard to sit back and watch law enforcement do their thing for several hours, leave the scene, and sneak up there and get some photos taken. And even if they were leaked, I don't think Derek would have that information. I mean, he knows who his source is, but he's not leading it up to saying it's law enforcement or things of that nature. And so we have to be very, very careful when we start putting law enforcement in that kind of a position, or start putting legal agencies in that kind of a position. This is a small community, and audience matters. So when you start putting things out there that you can't prove, it's one thing to speculate, to say, I wonder, maybe this happened, and then leave it at that. But it's another thing to say it 10 times over, because it takes about 7 times of somebody hearing the same information to believe it's true. So I find that, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to take a lot of heat for this one. I find it irresponsible to lead an audience down that path and then not correct it later on, or not ask the source, because there was no conversation that took place to clarify that. I contacted Derek because I have a good relationship with Derek, and I asked to make sure they were not posted over the weekend. They were never
posted by Derek.
They were never posted. So,
and Margaret said, thank you. I think OSBI and the DA have done a great job preventing any leaks in the investigation.
Correct.
I do as well.
Yeah.
As well. Patrick, is it possible family members who found car and called law enforcement took pics themselves?
That's interesting. you know what? I didn't even think about that, because if I was a family member, I don't know if that'd be the first thing I would think of. I don't know. We can go snoop around, see if we can find out about that.
Right. I don't know if I would either. I don't
It's
know.
amazing.
I hope I never have to find out.
It's yeah. So
But
that's where we've kind of been at with that. So, did you want to do the last one, or?
oh no, you can
Oh,
read it.
yeah. Oh, okay. So you jumped over, then jumped back. I'm like, oh, are we not ready? So somebody reached out to me and said that there were some words they wanted to put out there, and they showed me the words that they want to put out there, but they didn't want spotlighted. So I offered to put some things together for them, and this is what I put together, and it was approved. So this is from the Closely Impacted, and I'll read it out for you. It's kind of long, but it's worthwhile. And it says that words have not yet been made available to describe what happened that day to our family. It is one thing to believe this kind of thing does not happen close to home. It's entirely different when it not only knocks on your front door, but makes itself at home on your living room couch asking for a cup of coffee. Stories, facts, lies, half-truths, theories, and ridiculous tales swarm our everyday lives. If it's not on social media, it's in our email or it's in our text messages. This grinds into a wound that is unfamiliar, unexpected, and unnecessary. Yet every day the internet continues while we figure out a way to get through. Despite the pain, the sorrow, the torture, it would not align with our Christian beliefs to wish ill upon those that decided Veronica and Jilian were necessary sacrifices. That has come to be the toughest test of our faith and our values. When someone chooses to take an innocent life because of what they believe, one more than feels truth in the valor of God's grace, his love, and his belief in our free will. It is with the utmost of prayer and our love for our God that the five who made the fateful decisions that day find their way back to the God we all cherish in this community. While we may understand his will in different ways, albeit obscure, it is his love that we embrace and allow to carry us through each day, each hour, and each moment without Jilian and Veronica. To our community family, this is beyond us. Our faithful Lord will see thy will be done. The path to healing is found through the one true power we all have within ourselves, to forgive. So that is from those that are very closely impacted by what happened to Jilian and Veronica. Their point was to get across that the ill will is not there. They hope they find their way back to where they were supposed to be in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yes.
crying, you're crying.
Right. Very well written and very well stated. So regarding the pictures, who asked that? They said they just got here. Regret. There were no pictures leaked, basically, is what we're saying. There were no crime scene pictures that were leaked. Nothing like that. And as far as if it was family or anything like that, but that's not what we were discussing. It was another creator that described the crime scene on Facebook in the very beginning, and then that's been kind of twisted that there was photos put out and what have you when there weren't. I can honestly say I've not seen any photos other than the ones I personally took, and those were 5 days afterwards. So I've never seen any. I don't think that there's any really floating around. So whether family took pictures or not, it's kind of neither here nor there. I think we haven't seen them if they have. So
Yeah.
it was just to kind of clear up a rumor that another creator didn't put those out.
Correct.
So hopefully that makes sense.
If not, we'll just muddy it up some more. It'll be great. We'll have to do another live to
We might
clarify.
make it worse. Who knows?
Thank you,
Yes.
Margaret DeYounger. They are powerful. They are powerful comments.
All right. Real quick, I also want to put Yep, who is one of our mods. I don't know if she's still here or not. But let me please go and sub up to Yep's channel. if you are not already. I know a lot of you probably are, but she puts out a lot of really good work.
Yeah, she
And of
does.
course, Tara's link is pinned for tomorrow night at 7:15, and that is on custody battles. Man, I probably have a lot to say on that.
Parenting hell.
Yes. And Ruby Tuesday. These poor families have endured so much. They have. And I think the second paragraph, stories, facts, lies, half truth, theories, and ridiculous tales swarm our everyday lives. If it is not on social media, it's in our email or it's in our text messages. And that grinds into a wound that is unfamiliar, unexpected, and unnecessary. I think that speaks loudly.
Yeah, it does. And I'm not
Like,
saying because I wrote it for them, but that's
but
the
like,
impression that's been there.
think about what you're saying. Think if you were a family member, would you want that said about your loved one that's no longer here? Think about how rumors can impact other people. I think, the family, they're amazing, first of all.
Oh god, yeah.
And that this is how they feel. They do want to forgive. And they're a strong family. And we're speaking of Veronica's side, but we also know that Jillian's is as well.
Mhm.
So yes, that letter is a great reminder where the focus should remain. Absolutely, Prairie. It
Mhm.
really should. It's on justice for Veronica and Jillian. It's on the case. It's on the facts, and seeing it through to the end. And we'll all be here together to do that. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
all right. Thank you so much for everybody that is in the chat this evening.
Yes. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you guys. And like I said, hopefully you'll join us tomorrow evening for a more laid back. I'm not going to call it fun. I don't know how that's going to go,
It's
but
it's so for those of you that aren't familiar, Shenanigans is a channel that's designed to give you space, not a safe space, mind you. It's not the type of safe space, but it's a space to open up and share your experiences without the any kind of drama or judgment. It's trying to learn from one another and just accept that things happen in our lives that we don't agree
yeah,
with. We need a place to talk about it. So Shenanigans is all about that. And um, there is a link at the top. She said she pinned it. There it is.
it
Join
is.
us tomorrow night. It's Kari and I are on that one. I forced Kari over there because she bullied me into doing the channel. So it only makes sense to drag her along for the ride. And then there's Shenanigans crew, Amber, Katie, Kathy, and Bronwyn, if we can ever get her out of roller derby stuff. But so there's a lot of experiences there. We're going to have the panel open to invite folks to come up, and there'll be more than one night of this. It's going to take at least 2 or 3 discussions to
Yes.
just
So if
share
any of you have
experiences.
some horror stories about co-parenting, custody battles, and
Mhm.
you want to come up on the panel tomorrow night, you're more than welcome. You do
Yes.
not have to turn your camera on,
No.
but come join us, even if it's just in chat. Bianca, thank you so much for accepting that wrench that I tossed your way without even
Yes.
asking or warning you. I appreciate it very much. Yep's usually the only mod. Thankfully, we don't really get a lot of bad comments. So,
No.
but I appreciate very much for doing that. And I know you're a great one. So
Yes. Thank you, Bianca.
anyway,
Thank you, Yep. Thank you to all the members and the non-members, everybody being here tonight. That makes this channel work. That's what
yes,
keeps
yes,
this channel going. If you guys didn't show up, we would talk to ourselves, cry ourselves out, and have a night. So, but this makes it easier. So,
definitely. Thank you, y'all. You have a great evening.
thank you guys. Have a good night. Oh my God, I can't talk. Bye.
Good night. Bye bye.